With Mahim coast of Mumbai reclassified as a bay, a large chunk of Mumbai's prime shoreline now opens up for development. Developers in Mumbai say it was high time that the CRZ norms were relaxed, but urban planning experts are fearing the worst. Let's get both views on the table today. Urban development expert Chandrasekhar Prabhu joins us on the show from Mumbai to highlight the environmental perspective, and Sujay Kalele, CEO of Kolte Patil Developers, will share the industry's viewpoint. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Sujay, let me begin with you. Mahim coast redefined, the CRZ belt, the radius reduced from 500 meters to 100 meters. How is the developer industry, the developer community in Mumbai viewing this development?
Well, it's a welcome move, more from the perspective that, this is an area which is already densely populated. There are buildings which are already inhabited by people. When they were built decades ago, there was nothing called as CRZ, but because of the rules that came into being post those buildings coming up, the redevelopment of that entire Dadar, Mahim, Matunga belt has been held up because of the CRZ. So that will only make sure that the people who are already staying there get good quality of life while also unlocking some amount of land potential, which ultimately will result into moderation of pricing.
All right. So, Mr. Prabhu, as an urban development expert, what is your opinion on how the Maharashtra Coastal Zone Management Authority acted by redefining the Mahim coast as a bay? Do you think there was a genuine need to do this?
First of all, let me clarify a few things. A, the Dadar Mahim area, it's only 500 meters which is affected by the CRZ zone. The remaining part of it was never affected. So to say that the development was strangulated or stopped because of CRZ is a myth, because that beyond 500 meters, you should have seen all the development happen. So that's not true. Second is, in the Bombay's experiences, as and when more development takes place, the rationalization of prices happen. Development has happened. Bombay was 1 FSI, then it was increased to 1.33, then it was increased to 2, then it became unlimited, and so on. The FSI kept on increasing, lot of square feet was built. Never have the prices come down. So the concept of rationalizing, or if there is more, this is relevant for Pune, Nashik, Aurangabad, wherein you can grow on all sides. Mumbai, it doesn't happen because this is an island and prices keep on increasing, however much you add to the housing stock. So both these things are untrue, incorrect. If my student were to mention that in his paper, I would fail him. So that's one thing which one should understand. Now, coming back to the concept of what is a bay and what is sea. To me, anything that faces an open waterfront leading to the sea is sea. And hence, 500 meters have to be classified as CRZ anyways. If Worli Sea Face is a sea, if Haji Ali is a sea, then Dadar is also a sea. Now, just because you feel that is a bay, I mean, you could stretch this to think that Bombay, as it was called for 300 years, is a bay, because in its name itself there is a bay. Hence, the whole of the city should be out of the CRZ because it is called a bay.
But are you fearing that this could set a wrong precedent for other areas? We also have Chowpatty, Kafpurate, Churchgate, parts of Malad.
It would not only set wrong precedents for the other area, it would destroy the very culture of Dadar. The entire cultural hub of the island city is Dadar Mahim.
Sujay, how do you react to this criticism from environmentalists, urban planners, that Mumbai is going to lose its seafront if you open up, if you redefine coastlines like this arbitrarily? What is your reaction to this, and where do you think most of this land which is going to be unlocked is going to be used? What kind of development do you expect?
I think one of the key points that Prabhu sir has highlighted is very valid, that the development of these new areas also has to keep in mind in the first place how the development happened in the past, and it has to preserve the social well-being, the thread that it was first meant to preserve. And if we are able to manage and balance both the aspects, then we don't see why it won't actually benefit the average Mumbaikar as a whole. And while I'm slightly disconnected with the viewpoint that new supply or fresh supply in Bombay hasn't resulted in rationalization of pricing. If you look at the entire lower Parel belt, right, today the average per square feet pricing is less than what it is in Bandra Khar, Santa Cruz, that belt. While 3 years ago that was not the case. The only reason why the pricing has rationalized and it is lesser than suburbs, which in itself is a big news for Mumbaikars, is because the supply got to hit the market at the right time. So while it is right that historically the pricing has not moved as per supply because the supply has kind of hit the market in various strata, if the supply hits the market together, there is a chance that we'll see rationalization of prices. But absolutely, as far as the cultural heritage, preservation of history, preservation of the social thread, the fabric goes, I think it's possible, and it has been proven with so many schemes. If you just purely compare the coastal protection norms that India as a country has with some of the Western countries, we still believe that there is a merit in balancing the need of urban development and the need for preserving the coastal norms.
Balancing all aspects, Mr. Prabhu, a lot of these areas where there are a lot of old slum clusters, old dilapidated buildings which are potential projects for redevelopment. All of those also get stalled because they come under restrictive CRZ norms. Do you feel there's a need to revisit them, with this redefinition of the Mahim Bay? A lot of slum redevelopment can happen. That could be a big positive. What's your perspective on this?
No, slum redevelopment in any case in CRZ areas under the new gazette has been permitted. So it is not an issue whether slum redevelopment, if you make it a bay then it will happen, and if you don't make it a bay then it won't happen. It's not like that. Under the new guidelines which were issued by the Environment Ministry, if the slum redevelopment in these areas have to be there, any of the areas which fall into coastal regulation zone, there are certain norms which they have to follow, and if they follow it, that is possible. So no slum redevelopment project was stalled due to it being in CRZ under the new this thing. Of course, it takes some time for the new laws to sink into people. So that argument has no this thing, because anything that you do, cold-blooded murder, you always use the poor for that. So you say, no, all this is going to help slum. It's not going to help slum redevelopment, because otherwise also under the old norms, slum redevelopment was possible if you followed certain principles, because the new guidelines of the Environment Ministry permitted slum redevelopment in coastal regulation zone areas, provided they followed certain this thing. Now the issue is whether you want to follow that or you don't want to follow that, and by removing it outside the purview of the CRZ, you will not follow it at all. So that argument doesn't have any this thing. Secondly, with regard to rationalization doesn't mean you compare Lower Parel with Bandra, and so each area has its own dynamics of growth in prices, and Lower Parel prices should be compared with Lower Parel prices, not with Bandra prices. If Lower Parel prices at any stage showed a downturn, then I would say that certain rationalization has happened. There has never been a downturn. You are having flats being sold at 40 crores and 50 crores. Now the question is, who buys that? That's another issue. But when the mill lands were given, I mean, unfortunately the memory is very short. If you go into your own archives and take interviews of people when Lower Parel was being developed and when the mill lands were being released, they said the moment you release the mill land, you'll see that Lower Parel will provide affordable housing to people. Has it been affordable? 40 crores or 10 crores?
Sujay, do you feel most of the outcry on this issue is because we expect that most of the projects that will come up in this land which is unlocked are going to be premium projects?
Well, if you take into account, if I just further the Sir's argument of the new DCR, I think as per the new development control rules released in January, February, 20% of, if your plot area is actually more than 4,000 square meter, 20% of that also now has to be reserved for EWS and handed over to MHADA. So I don't see actually why, as Sir rightly said, every location has its own dynamics. So if a particular plot of land is facing the sea, it will be premium. If a particular plot of land is constrained by views or whatever XYZ other planning constraints, you will see more affordable or more 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom kind of thing. So it's not as if that a Lower Parel or a Dadar doesn't have 2 bedrooms. Like it has 5 bedrooms, it has also 2 bedrooms. Like it has 30,000 rupees a square feet, it also has projects which are unable to sell at 18,000 rupees a square feet. So I think overall, to say that blanketly only premium housing projects will be done, I think that's a blanket statement. Already we have 20% reservation for EWS that we have to hand over to MHADA. Unfortunately, that also applies to redevelopment of societies, where as a redevelopment doing redevelopment projects, we also have to have independent building of 20% EWS. So even if I do a 4-bedroom, which hypothetically I am able to sell for 20-30 crores, in the same complex I also have to do 40 square meter apartments, which I have to compulsorily hand over to MHADA. So I think government is trying to balance the needs for all the interested parties by relaxing something, by making sure compulsions are coming, reservations are coming in. But broadly again, I think one point, it has to be uniform. It has to be uniform across the thing, and we cannot have selective policy making just for a particular belt.
Okay. All right. So Sujay Kalele, Mr. Prabhu, thank you so much for joining me today. So there you have it, Mumbai's coveted coastline. You need to toe the line between development and preserving Mumbai's water bodies and its prime coastline.